Oh, hello there. Oh, wonderful Jordan. LJ Harb of GitHub, or, of the,
Good afternoon.
I just know you by your GitHub handle, LJ Harb. Uh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here. And for those who don't know anything about you, can you please give a wonderful, wonderful intro about yourself? Feel free to
Yeah,
flex. Look, I saw your GitHub. Feel
sure.
free to flex. All right. So please let us know.
I
All right.
mean, I generally describe myself like historically, I was just a software engineer, like an IC, I've kind of moved into more open source and standards work, a lot of security stuff. I've been maintaining a lot of different open source packages for a very long time. I think my
Mhm.
first open source contribution was in like 2011,
Oh, wow.
and and I think since but yeah, so now I'm up to like 600 NPM packages. I maintain NVM. Um, it's, depending on the week, it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of NPM's download traffic, which is terrifying. And for most of it, I'm the only maintainer. So like,
Bus factor of
looking
one
out
for a
for
lot of these different projects.
buses. Yeah,
That's a bus factor of one
exactly.
for a lot of different projects. Oh man.
Yeah. I've been doing standard stuff for a long time. I've been on TC39, which is the standards committee that writes the JavaScript specification since
Mhm,
2014. I was an editor of the spec for a couple years. I've landed, you know, I don't know,
mhm,
probably 10 at this point language features in JavaScript. So that's really cool. Like people get to use stuff every day that I made, like that that I drove being added to the language. And yeah. My current employer is Socket, Socket.dev, a security company.
mhm.
We're working on certified patches. So like if you can't upgrade, since you should, but if you can't upgrade the versions of your dependencies that have vulnerabilities, you can apply these patches from Socket that a human has kind of reviewed and validated and certified. My previous employer, Hero Devs, sells a similar product where they sell drop-in replacements for unsupported open source packages, and they provide long-term support. So it's, there's a bit of a theme here about security and open source and backwards compatibility. Um, yeah, and I'm famous and infamous, depending on the circle, for having a very kind of rigorous
Yeah.
adherence to
Mhm,
support and backwards compatibility in Semver contracts.
mhm.
Um, what else? I'm also my own CNA, certificate naming authority. So any vulnerabilities on my software has to go through my CNA, harborist, which
Mhm.
means that I can like prevent false positives from going through, and I can also file my own CVEs as they're reported.
Oh, of
Um, and it's got a checks and balance system, right? Like if I ever
course.
do
Yeah.
anything wrong or nefarious, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
There's always an appeal uh,
I see.
process up the
Yep.
chain,
Mhm,
but it's much more efficient than me just having to rely on GitHub or
mhm.
TypeLift or someone else to file my
Yep.
CVs for me.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah.
I remember you said you're on, like, CNA, right? I just thought about, like, that one meme, the Obama, like, the medal meme or whatever, where, like, he's giving a medal to himself.
Oh
I just
yeah,
thought about that. Yeah, the whole, like
yeah, yeah. The Spider-Man
No,
one, maybe. Yeah,
the Spider-Man one, boom, boom, like, there we go, yep.
yeah.
I love it,
Yeah,
I love it.
there's a
No,
little bit of that going on for sure. I've
I
also
love it.
done a
No.
lot of work with the OpenJS Foundation and the Open Software Security Foundation.
Mhm.
I'm still very active in OpenJS. I've been a board member a few times. I'm on the cross project council, things like that,
Wonderful.
which is great. That foundation includes Node, NVM, ESLint, Mocha, Jest, Webpack, like
Yep.
tons and tons of things. Express, Lodash.
Yeah.
Um, and actually, we just rebooted Lodash's governance process. I'm one
Oh,
of the
wow.
TSC members, and so we have some roadmap plans for future versions of Lodash, similarly to how Express was rebooted last year.
Mhm.
Um, yeah,
That is
so
amazing.
I got
So
my
you got
fingers in a
you
lot of pies, as
no,
it were.
no, you got a CV, my guy, alright? Like, I mean, it just goes. I love it, I love it, I love it. And sort of, like, following that up, sort of, like, going back to the very beginning, what inherently got you into open source? I think one thing that I really love and that you were talking about, right, when I think about this is that, like, you have been a part of, I mean, everything from language features to, I'm looking at, like, your organizations and even, like, your just all the different, like, projects you maintain, right? You've either been a core maintainer or you've either created it or been a core contributor slash maintainer um, across a multitude of things over the ecosystem. I know I've used like a vast amount of your of your of the dependencies you've like built like over the course, like
Hmm.
almost in every project. I'm sure at least almost every project I have, even for work or personal projects, uses
Yeah.
some sort of like something you've like essentially like touched. So I'm curious to know, like, sort of taking a step back, what inherently like, because this is a resume, what got you into open source and how did that fuel like you to like where you're at today and all the different things you've done? So I know, kind of a loaded
Yeah.
question.
No, I mean, like one of the reasons I've always liked like math and programming and computers in general is that like the I like figuring stuff out, right?
Hmm.
Like there are answers that are right and there are answers that are wrong, right? If you
Yeah.
go into something like philosophy or literature in general, right? Like there's all sorts of valid interpretations and very few of them are wrong, if any, right?
Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to this stuff, there might be more than one right answer. There often is, but there are definitely also wrong answers. And I personally just like it fits well with my brain that there's like
Hmm.
a system and like right and wrong and
Yeah.
spectrums of those things is fine, but it's like,
Hmm.
um, and then just kind of putting together a jigsaw puzzle, right? Like solving something, that thrill you get when you fix something that you maybe should have thrown out a year ago, but like you
Hmm.
held on to it just in case, and then you fix it and you're like, oh, it works again. Like that kind of feeling is,
Yeah.
I get that out of pretty much anything with computers.
Hmm.
And back in 2011, I had started my first you know real programming job outside of working on my own startup with some friends.
Hmm.
That where I had a bug in something we were using, and
Hmm.
I went and fixed the bug, and it was like I just did that. Like
Hmm.
I solved my problem,
Yeah.
and I solved it for other people,
Hmm.
and that was kind of cool. And so I just kept doing it, and
Hmm.
at least in that stage in the JavaScript ecosystem, there weren't nearly as many people willing to participate as
Hmm.
there are now. And there's still not probably enough, but but there's
Yeah.
more now than there used to be.
Hmm.
And so I found that that after I contributed enough to a project, I filed good, reproducible issues that are like well written out, or I wrote pull requests that were correct, or I was responsive to the
Hmm.
code review. And, maybe it sucked, but like I immediately fixed the things that were pointed out. And, over time, maintainers just started handing me the keys to things,
Yeah.
either to help them or to take over from them because they had already solved their problem, scratched their itch, and they like didn't really care about the
Yeah.
project anymore, and they felt some responsibility. And
Yeah.
by handing it off to anyone, right? Like they can make sure it keeps going and they haven't like
Yep.
unintentionally screwed over anyone who was depending on their stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and so a lot of my packages that I maintain aren't things I created. They're things that I took over, like NVM, for example.
Hmm.
I didn't
Yeah.
write it. An engineer named Tim Caswell did forever
Yep.
ago. He hasn't been in the JavaScript ecosystem in a long time. I think he does a
Hmm.
lot of Go stuff now, but
Hmm.
either way, like he was happy to have someone else to help him. And when
Yeah.
he kind of lost interest in Node stuff, he was happy to have someone to hand it off to.
Mm.
And I've been like the sole maintainer for 12, 13 years at this point. So it's,
Wow.
you know, um,
Mhm.
in some ways it's, Tim himself has said it's more my project than his, but,
Mhm.
you know, um, the
Yeah.
fact remains is that like I just were, built on top of it. Right. And I think
Yep.
that's something I always try to remind myself that we're all standing on the backs of someone else, no matter what we do in life. And
Yeah.
it's important, even if you're proud of your accomplishments, you should still never forget, right? Like
Yeah.
what helped you get
Absolutely.
there. And so, like, kind of all of those things in combination have led to me just kind of organically accruing
Mhm.
maintenance of packages, right? And sometimes, over time, that has also included things I made myself to solve problems I was running into.
Mhm.
That some of which nobody cares about, and some of
Mhm.
which like are heavily dependent on.
Mhm.
Um, and I kind of feel a sense of, I guess, ethical responsibility to like
Yeah.
to responsibly maintain these things.
Mhm.
Which doesn't mean I have to fix every feature request people ask, and it definitely doesn't mean I have to tolerate people being assholes. But like, because that happens.
Yeah.
But it does mean that I need to kind of do right by as many people as I can.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
that doesn't always, it's not always going to be everyone, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes something that makes these people happy makes these people unhappy. And you
Yep.
can't really,
You can't
can't really
really.
solve that, right? You can't make all the
Yeah.
people happy all the time.
Yep,
Um,
that's very true. I know that's really prevalent. A lot of things that have happened. I know last year was one or whatnot, and everything like
yeah,
that. We don't have to like talk about like just in general or whatnot. You know,
sure.
at the end of the day, like when I think about a lot of even just open source maintainers in general, right? Um, you can't make everyone happy, but one thing I always like really try to is someone who's like contributed to open source projects in the past,
Mhm.
um, or even maintained several as well. One thing I always think of when it comes to anyone maintaining any open source project is like positive intent, right? People
Right.
typically contribute to open source. This is like outside of their day to day job. This is, you know, something they do like in their free time, right? When they could be spending time with
Right.
family, with friends, taking care of like their mental health as well too, right? And so I
Hmm.
sort of take that thought process, that mindset, when it comes to interacting with, again, let's say if I were to file an issue like on NVM, right? Um, like how I file an issue, right? How I put in a PR, how I interact with that maintainer or those maintainers, right? And
Yeah.
so, yeah, no, that's true, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
And it's like, it's also, I've had a kind of non traditional path as well, in that I don't have a
mhm,
degree, like a college degree.
mhm,
And so,
mhm,
um, I sort of worked towards one, but like never ended up completing it. And
yeah, yeah,
so, um, and I also like, I don't know, like I was diagnosed with ADD in junior year of high school, right? And
mhm,
so it's
yeah,
like, that's pretty late, but
mhm,
also it was the 90s and like nobody really understood it the way it's understood now.
yeah, yeah,
Right. And so it's like, that has kind of given me a sense of, I guess, compassion or empathy or something about
mhm,
like the different ways different people work.
yep,
And so, for example, I have a very long GitHub streak, right? Like every day I've done something on GitHub
yeah, mhm,
for, I probably have a few repos still to push up, but like for going
mhm,
back till 2014, I think.
mhm,
So it's like an 11-year streak. And I like that. It's like a meditative experience for me. But
mhm,
um, I don't know, 8 years ago or something, a bunch of people yelled about it because they thought it was encouraging unhealthy work life balance and unhealthy
mhm,
behavior, where people were like, "Well, I've got to do it every day,"
mhm.
and instead of making it a choice, they just like took it away.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I miss the GitHub streak. I look at that every single
right,
day. I actually have the whole I forgot what it is, but it like, like my GitHub stats or whatever it is, and it's like, oh,
hmm,
longest streak. Like my GitHub streak is like the one
yeah,
I have it like on my README because I'm like, I actually like kind of miss having
yeah.
like I miss having streaks. It was just
Well,
fun.
and
It
so
was
that's the
great.
thing, is that like
Hmm.
there are lots of things that are not healthy for everyone,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's very true.
That doesn't mean they're unhealthy for everyone.
Hmm.
And so, in the same way as there are people, every 6 months on Twitter or whatever other social media you pick,
Hmm. Yeah.
that will say, "Oh, if you're not working on the weekends, you're not going to make it. If
Yeah.
you are working on the weekends,
Hmm.
you have an unhealthy work life balance.
Hmm.
You better be in the office, like 11 hours a day or whatever. Oh, no, you better check out at 5." Like everybody has different opinions about like this is
Yep.
healthy and this is unhealthy, and
Yeah.
they're all right for some people, probably for themselves,
Hmm.
but like they're also wrong for some people. And
Yeah.
so the takeaway I've got from that whole discourse back when the streak was removed was like,
Hmm.
you don't get to tell me what's healthy for me. I do.
Hmm. Yep.
And my work life balance that's healthy for me is that
Hmm.
I do a little bit of something in open source every day.
Hmm.
That includes the day I got married. That includes the day each of my children was born, right? Like,
Hmm.
because it's not like it necessarily distracted from anything important, right? Like
Hmm.
it wasn't hard for me to find 5 minutes a day to do something.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
right. And I think
Yeah.
so it's meditative for me. Right. And so in the same way, some people say, oh,
Yeah.
I want to take a 5 minute walk every day, or I want to do a
Mhm.
little
I
yoga or
see.
do a workout or
Mhm.
pray or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what those things are. It's you figure out what you need to do for your own health. And so
Mhm.
like I don't, so on that same line, like I don't encourage other people to
Mhm.
maintain as much stuff as I do, right? Like that's not
Mhm.
necessarily healthy. There are
Yeah.
definitely people that won't be healthy for,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
And that's not up to me to tell them whether they're
Mhm,
that person or not. But like everybody's got to figure that out for themselves. And,
mhm,
you know, I think at this point, even my wife would agree that
mhm,
that I have a healthy setup around these things.
mhm.
Probably right out the gate, she was a little worried about it, but like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I'm a good dad. I'm a good husband. Like
Mhm.
I'm a part of the community. Like I
Yeah,
have a job.
yeah. Mhm.
I'm comfortable with my life,
Yeah,
um and the way I think about an approach open source, I think has largely been almost entirely been a positive in my life.
that's
Not
awesome. That's
exclusively
cool.
because
Yeah,
there's,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
there's
Oh,
road
yeah. No,
bumps,
no,
but
oh, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, with that being stated, like, what
Mhm,
does your typical day like, what does that look like, right? I think about again, I know you wanna you spend time with, fam, you have your open
mhm,
source, you have work, right?
mhm.
And I'm sure you have other things as well too, like, but what does your day-to-day look like, not only as a engineer at a company, but also as an
Yeah.
open source maintainer? And so what does that look like? And also as a
So,
family man as well too, right? So yeah, what is
yeah, I mean, it varies, of course, right? Like on school days, I take my kids to school,
mhm,
and on days when I have meetings, whether they're employer meetings or standards meetings or OpenJS Foundation meetings, like things like that, right? I'll have those things to attend, but
mhm,
once the meetings are not like once meetings and scheduled obligations are out of the way,
yep,
um, I tend to like I have my GitHub notifications page open on every device
yeah,
in a tab, and so I just kind of check that. And where a lot of people might go on YouTube or doom scroll or read
I
a
see.
book or
Mm.
zone out, right? Like the way that I disconnect from whatever I'm doing
Mm,
is that I go and look through notifications, and I'll
mm,
quickly
I see.
triage through them. And if they
Mhm,
need more time, I'll like make a mental note that I need to come back to it, and I'll leave it unread, But like I have a little system there.
yeah,
Um, but I'm very, there's that study that says that like only out of all the people that think they're really good at multitasking, only like 10% of them are.
mhm.
And I think I'm in that 10%.
Yeah, I'm definitely in the
um,
90%. I'm not gonna lie to you. My wife will tell you, she's like, "You cannot multitask for the life of you." I'm like, "You're right. You're totally right." So I'm on the
yeah.
90%, okay?
And there's definitely some things that I devote my full attention to, right? It's
Yeah,
although
yeah,
it's
yeah.
usually like the TV
Mhm.
shows or movies I really want to see, but like, you know, um, but yeah, I think that given that I kind of jump around a lot, and
Mhm.
I try to, I feel like it maximizes what I get done
I see.
by just kind of focusing on whatever my brain cares about in these 3 seconds, and that
Mhm.
might change.
I see.
It might not. It might be the same for an hour. It might change 50 times in an hour, right? Like,
Mhm.
as long as I'm able to do the context switch and jump right back in, then
Yep.
like it
Mhm.
ends up. I find that I end up being more effective than if I
Oh, interesting.
try to lock myself down to one thing.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
yeah.
That's interesting. So, and that was actually something I really wanted to ask, right? Because you do maintain a multitude of open source like projects, right? From the ES5 shim to I think with the ES6 shim as well too. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
And then hundreds of polyfills for after that. Yeah.
Tons, yeah, exactly, tons of polyfills,
Yeah.
ESLint plugins,
Hmm.
and a bunch of other like just things as well. I think what QS is it? I want to say what is that? Was
Yep.
that quick?
QS, query string, parsing
Query string, yep,
serializer.
query string.
Yep.
I almost said quick
Uh,
search. My goodness. Yeah, all right. So, too many acronyms. Too many
yeah. Yeah, I maintain like a testing framework tape.
tape. Yep. Mhm.
I Yeah, it's like all kind of all over the place.
Yeah. So, like, how do you? And this is really interesting for me. Do you feel as though like you're again like asking like your ADD like sort of attributes to like sort of like that push of like, oh man, like I love like I'm never bored, right? There's always something to do, but also
Yeah.
like that constant I guess like what being constantly intrigued of
Hmm.
of like when it comes to open source. Oh, there's never a boring day, right? In open source or whatnot.
Yeah.
Is that sort? Do you think that
Well,
sort of attributes to like how you? Yeah. Sorry, I was like,
yeah, no,
sorry,
I
I
do.
thought you were going to talk. I had to stop for a
No,
moment.
no,
Like
no, I
how
didn't
you
want to
sort of
interrupt you, but
how you
yeah, I
okay,
think
yeah,
you're
how you
exactly
sort of
right.
open source, right? How you sort of manage your day to day, your open source and things along those lines. So there's a constant, I think, what string of like there's always new problems to solve, always new things, right? But it's over a vast array of like
Exactly.
things you're maintaining. Is that sort? Do
Well,
you think?
I,
Yeah.
I do. And I think the other thing is in the NPM ecosystem tends to favor the Unix philosophy, which is a thing should
Mhm.
do one thing and do it well, meaning lots
Mm,
of small composable pieces and not as many like
mhm.
big
I see.
multi-purpose bloated things.
Yep.
Obviously there's exceptions, right? And I'm not going
Yeah.
to name drop any of them right now, but like,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
what that means though is that most of my packages are small, single purpose,
Mm.
uh, largely done in that
Mhm.
I might need to pop back in if there's a bug or if it needs to work on a new
I
version
see.
of Node or a browser or
Mhm.
whatever. But I largely can, like, I've solved the problem in one little bubble, and then
Mhm.
I can just kind of put that on a shelf and I don't have to think about it after that. And I can go get it back out if I need to, but
Yep.
that problem is now solved forever. And I
Yep.
just reach for that as the solution every time I have that problem, and I don't have to think about the edge cases. That's all wrapped up in that bubble, right? And so that
Right.
sort of
Hmm.
that's kind of architectural approach, I think also lends itself to the ability to
Um,
jump in and out of different things because
I see.
each solution
Mhm.
has a well contained and defined problem, and it
Interesting.
has appropriate encapsulation boundaries and
Mm,
like API boundaries. And
I see.
so
So
it's why I'm not a big monorepo fan, right?
I
Because
see.
like
I see.
monorepos
Yep.
make it easy to blur those lines,
Yep.
and I
Yep. Yep.
prefer
Yep.
not to blur those lines, right?
Interesting. So the
Um,
SRP, but like an open source, single responsibility principle. So, from what
exactly
I'm
right.
understanding, though, it's like the context switching is not as encumbersome, as it would be
Yeah,
if you were to have, a multitude of packages in like one project. It's just a series of smaller projects. Oh, I'm going to context switch to this specific one. Oh, well, I know, for example, object.assign is one of the projects that you're working on. You know
yeah,
specifically, okay, here's a patch that's necessary for like object, the object
yeah,
assign package, right? So, um, like that right there, it's like, okay, well, the context is this. I don't have to worry about any sort
yeah.
of, burden myself with anything else in particular. It's just strictly that. And so
Yeah.
I see.
And it's
So that
almost the
makes
same way LLMs work, right? Like they jump into a to a
yeah.
project and then they have their local like Claude.md or agents.md or whatever,
Mhm.
and they like page in the context and then,
Yeah.
and not that I think AIs are comparable to humans, but like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
there is some parallels there.
Yeah. 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 That's
Yeah.
interesting. That is actually really interesting. So, I mean, like, sort of even going forward, right? Do you plan on like sort of adding more projects to like your plate, right? And if so, like ideally, like what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I published two or like five new ones actually in the last month or two.
oh, word,
I
really?
made a ESLint plugin lock file, so
Wow.
it lints your actual lock file for some security issues, and
Mhm.
along with it, there's a CLI tool that just like runs the ESLint tool without you needing to actually have it configured.
Mhm.
Um, Lint lock, that's what I called that.
Lint lock.
And then the other project was Perl, PURL. So it's package URL standard was recently
Mhm.
standardized in ECMA. I think it's ECMA
Oh,
427.
wow.
And so, like, there's a Semver package. Now there's a Perl package, right? I think there was another one already, but I didn't know about it until after.
Mhm.
But basically, like, it's to make it easy to work with Perls and to convert them back and forth between like NPM package specifiers and that more universal standard, right? And
Mhm.
it's just sort of the need came up, and another standard I actually just helped finalize recently is CLE, Common Lifecycle Enumeration. It's ECMA 428.
Oh, wow.
Basically,
Okay.
it's a way for a project to document its lifecycle events, including support, so that you can then programmatically determine the support status of a given version of your software.
Mhm.
Um, and the standard is new, so we need to build a lot of
Mhm.
tools for it. And I'm going to be building some tools for it.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
yeah. So
Mhm.
I'm one of the conveners of task
Mhm.
group 3 of
Yeah.
ECMA, or was it of TC 54,
TC.
which
Okay.
is
Gotcha.
yeah, TC54 is like S bombs and related things.
Yeah.
And TG3 is the one that was working on CLE.
Okay.
And so as part of that, like the work I'll be doing is building tools around CLE. So there will be some more projects coming from there to try and encourage
Wonderful.
adoption. And
Man,
yeah,
that's amazing. And how do you manage? I mean, how do you sort of protect yourself from burnout? I mean, that's another question I really want to ask too, because again, this is some more packages. Like, how do you manage burnout, or how do you leave that
I
at
mean,
bay if you do?
I don't think I've ever really experienced it.
Really?
Um, I think I've come close a number of times, but like,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it looks like for everyone,
Mhm.
but like,
Mhm.
I guess the context switching means that I'm never like, I never have blinders on for one thing because I'm
Mhm.
jumping around so much.
Yeah.
So if something sucks, I'm just naturally going to pay attention to it less and I'm going to do something else
Mm,
more.
I see. Okay.
Um, I would say that when my employer, like when my job at my employment sucks, that's harder
Mhm.
to ignore, right? Or if something sucks with my family life, like that's pretty consuming. But
Yeah.
like, I don't know. I have a lot of different ways that I like relax or disconnect or
Mhm.
whatever. I mean, I have a standing date night with my wife every week. We've been
Oh, that's
doing that
awesome.
since COVID. I
Yeah.
like have a pub trivia night on Zoom with some friends every week.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, like
Mhm.
somewhat like dad,
What is like, you are able
stereotypical
to
dad
disconnect from,
things.
like, tech and all that, so you're able to, like, disconnect everything
Yeah, and
from that
like
and
I
just
spend a
be
lot of time with my kids and
mhm.
like I coach both their soccer teams in the fall and like
That's
I
awesome.
take them to their swim meets and so it's
So then we
I have a lot of I have more than plenty of
mhm.
opportunities to find enjoyment from lots
Mm,
of different sources. And
I see.
so,
Mhm.
if something's unpleasant, I'm just going to do less of it
Yeah.
because why would
Yeah.
I want to do something unpleasant?
No, that makes total sense.
Um, yeah, like
And
I don't know, before I had kids, I constructed my entire life around never having to wake up before like 10 a.m. Um, like
wait, really?
for decades, literally. Like
Wow.
I picked my classes in, when I was in various schools of
Mhm.
like not in the morning. I
Mhm.
only did morning, meetings later in the day, stuff
Yeah.
like that. Obviously, having kids screws with that,
Oh,
with
yeah,
being
we had a 5 AM wake up
sleeping
just
in.
yesterday for me, so our little one, she was like, "Daddy," calling me, he's like, "I
Yeah.
called you, you need to wake, like, come on, come here," to get her from her
It is
room
a
and
remarkable
everything.
experience to
I mean,
be
6
woken up
AM.
early, something that I literally devoted my life to never having to do and not being angry because my kids are so cute. And it's
I
just
know.
like, ugh,
Oh,
like
it's
I
so
want to be mad, but
I can't. You're just
yeah,
awesome. You're amazing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know, dude.
yeah,
Little ones are just. It's funny. It's just funny, like the curveball they throw. Even
yeah.
today, little ones at home right now, and obviously work during the day. Snow day, it's closed and all that stuff. But she's like,
There you go.
"Yo, Daddy, like, play with me off of work." I'm like, well, Daddy has to
Yeah,
log in today, But obviously, but finding that median, still playing with her throughout the day and everything like that.
yeah.
But like, yeah, no,
I had to
it's
work
just
pretty hard because I've been working at home since COVID, obviously, and like
yeah,
I've
yeah,
had
yeah.
to work pretty hard to like train my whole family
Hmm.
not to come in when the door is closed. So like that's the signal. If the door's open, they can just wander in, and if the
Water.
door's closed, then they need to knock or assume I'm in a meeting. And it's like it generally works.
It generally
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
It's okay if a little one pops up like a random event. I'm all here for it. Yo, little
yeah.
one, always welcomed.
They're
All
at
right.
school now, luckily, but
Oh, they okay. Gotcha. I
yeah,
was like, they're always welcomed. But
yeah,
yeah, I'm like, then plot twist. I'll interview you. Like, how'd you? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, but yes,
yeah.
yeah, man. So like, I mean, sort of even like looking forward, like, what is this like? What does 2026 look like for you? And even onward, right? I know you're talking
Hmm.
about like, was it the Pearl package that you just recently, and then what was it
Yeah.
CL, or was it Common,
CLE
Life
is so
Cycle?
Perl PURL is
Yep,
that package and that
package,
standard.
and then Common
CLE Common Lifecycle
Life Cycle
Enumeration. That's the new
enumeration. That's
standard
what it
that I
was.
want to build
Enumeration.
some tools for.
Yep, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming that's going to really consume a lot of like your 2026 work, or could be, right? Who knows, right?
I
But like,
mean, it'll be a chunk, right? Like my
mhm,
hope is to build enough tools so that I can go to major open source projects and be like, "Hey, look, I just made this thing
mhm,
using these tools,
yep,
and here's the way you can keep it up to date very easily." And now everybody can figure out when something's unsupported and when it's supported. It's going to encourage
mhm,
people to upgrade. It's going to,
mhm,
et cetera.
yep,
And that'll help me. I can like PR that support basically into major open source
yeah,
projects and
mhm.
hopefully increase adoption. Right? That's
Now,
yeah,
interesting. Now I've got to ask, because this is really interesting, right? We've seen the rise of AI, like artificial intelligence, and LLMs being used. I'm curious to know, right? Because it seems that over the course of the years, you've learned how to sort of pretty much optimize your day to day. Have you utilized any sort of AI or LLM to sort of like, to further optimize your day, right? To, allow for even
yeah.
more downtime or whatnot. Have you been using any of that? Like, have you used like any AI, used AI in general or in that sense? Like, could
Yeah,
be.
so I mean, I've played with ChatGPT nearly since it was a thing, right? Like
Mhm,
I've been kind of poking around with various tools. I have a couple memberships to things.
mhm,
My what I would say my like nuanced take on AI is that
mhm,
for tasks where correctness doesn't matter, like
Mhm.
coming up with images, or I've told it to make up a story for my kids these ages, and it like tells it out loud and entertains them. Like
Yeah.
correctness doesn't matter; it's doing a great job, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Or or just if I'm talking back, if I'm using it to brainstorm, right? Like
I
it
see.
doesn't
Yep.
have to be right; it just has to help me talk to something.
Mhm.
Um, or for tasks where you're a domain expert,
I
so
see.
where what you're asking it to do is something you're qualified to do. You
Mhm.
just want to do it faster or easier.
I
It's
see.
something where you are qualified to interrogate the response, to
Mhm.
craft your prompts so that like you're
Mhm.
getting better results instead of just kind of, well, yeah, just better results. And so I think for those cases, generative
Mhm.
AI is amazing.
Mhm.
Um, for the big chunk in between, and I'm really talking about generative AI here, for the big chunk in between,
Yep.
I find that even as the tools get better and they've
Mhm.
gotten better,
Yep.
it's still dangerous
Mhm.
because it is seductive in the sense that like it can be right just often enough that you trust the times when it's wrong, and that can cause
Mhm.
really bad effects for
I
tasks where
see.
correctness matters.
I see. I see.
Um, but that said, I've been using Claude Code in particular the
Mhm.
most, and
Yep.
there's some command you can run. It's like an NPM package called CC usage,
Mhm.
and it like estimates your token usage with a dollar amount,
Mhm.
which is not the amount I've spent, but it's like the amount. And so back in October, it was like $42 or something.
Yeah.
So I'd used it a few times, nothing too
Yeah.
intense.
Not bad.
Um, when I ran it the other day, it was $1,200. So, and this is
Word?
February or January. So like I've been using it a lot more.
Mhm.
But I'm still being really rigorous and careful about checking its results and
I
doing
see.
a lot of back and forth.
Mhm.
Um, but like there are tasks it's really good at. Like I can
Mhm.
be like, hey, I just force push this branch 6 times to fix something.
Mhm.
Now I have, and there's 8 GitHub action workflows on this branch. So now I have 40,
Yep.
or 45
Mhm.
runs.
Yep.
Just go delete all the old ones. That's so much
Mm.
faster than me doing it.
I see.
I had a badge on the README of like 300 of my projects
Yep.
that used RunKit
Mhm.
to uh, aggregate the statuses of all my GitHub Actions workflows for a commit into one
Yeah.
little badge because there hadn't been another way to do it.
Yep.
RunKit died like 2 years ago, and I've never gotten around to fixing the badge. Well,
Mm.
Shields.io added a badge for this. So I was like, cool, I'll use that badge, but I have to slog through that many hundreds of READMEs. So I had Claude do it, and it just pushed
That's
up
awesome.
300 commits. And then I think I had like 20 projects that were CI failed for other reasons. And I had
Mhm.
to go in and like clean them up.
Yeah.
And the rest, it's fine. So,
Fine.
it's like there's definitely ways to automate things, to speed things up.
Yeah.
I've I built a tool in partnership with the Major League Hacking Fellowship a couple years ago
Yep.
called Repo-Report.
Mhm.
So you can run it right now, npx repo-report with a
Ooh, I
GitHub
gotta
token in your environment,
okay.
and
I
it will
will
find every repo on GitHub across all users and enterprises
Mhm.
that you have triage or better access to. And then it will give you a sort of maximally collapsed table. It's hard to describe until you've run it, but of basically like actionable things for you to fix. And so, and then there's like a config file you can add that will um, change what things should be. So if you say all the repos should have main as the master is the default branch, but like these three, they should have master because I'm
Mhm.
not changing those for whatever reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can configure that. And then if you have a repo that's out of compliance, essentially, it will tell
Mhm.
you, hey, you got to fix this thing. And
Mhm.
then there's one that's like, it has to have branch protections. And,
Yep.
so it's basically anything I can get out of the GitHub API, I've automated so that I can figure out which of, without having to manually look at 600 repos, I can figure out which ones are kind of out of compliance with my best practices.
Mhm.
Um, and so like AI is pretty good at things like that,
I see.
where that's like, I qualified what I was saying about AI earlier in that it's generative AI. I
Mhm.
think even though 99% of the investment and funding and buzz is going into generative AI, I
Yeah.
think the actually more interesting thing is using it for notification and analysis, for surfacing things to humans to make decisions with.
That's interesting.
In other words, like in the medical field, right? You can look at 2 million x-rays and be like, here's cancer markers. And then a doctor can actually do a real check of those people without having to talk to all of them,
I
right? Like
see.
that's really valuable. And in the
Mhm.
same way here is I can use it to say, hey, you've got 600 repos. These 4, I think, are wrong with this thing. And maybe 2 of them are fine. And I've got a false positive. But I'd rather look at 4 things and I'll have 2 of them be correct
Yep.
than look at 300 things and have them all be right. Like, so it's there's definitely creative ways to use it. And if you're if you're determined enough and rigorous enough with how you craft prompts or like how you make your skills or whatever
Mhm.
it is, then you can get a lot of value out of it without needing to delegate your human authority to it.
I see. Okay. I'm really curious, because sort of thinking about AI, right? And knowing how a lot of your philosophy around like sort of like in open source, like the SRP single responsibility principle,
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if you've ever leveraged just AI in general, right? To even generate PRs for your specific like projects, right? I think about that like again, if we're thinking about even like the ES6 shim or even something even smaller like the object.assign, right?
Hmm.
Um, Obviously making sure it's ECMAScript compliant. I mean, you already obviously that
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
within itself it is, right? But like, even when it comes to filing bugs or issues or
Hmm.
whatnot, right? It being able to just sort of hyper focus, I guess, like, and actually generate a PR specifically on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Have
I
you
mean,
ever?
I think because I've got such a corpus of examples,
Mm-hmm,
it actually does work really well for that. I can point it at my existing things and be like, look at what I did here.
mm-hmm,
Do that for this over here. And like I
mm,
still need to polish it. It's still not
yeah,
perfect,
oh
but
yeah,
like
for
I can
sure.
do a lot of
Oh
the work. So
yeah.
like for
Mm-hmm,
example, for language feature polyfills, I've made a library called ES abstract that is
going with that. Yep,
basically the JavaScript spec has abstract operations, which are kind of like functions
yeah,
in the spec. And ES abstract is a collection of many of these, right? Not all of them. They're not all possible to do in JavaScript, but like,
yeah.
um, and so when I write my polyfills, I write them with ES abstract functions
Mm-hmm,
so that the polyfill code looks as close as possible to the actual spec text,
mm,
which means it's really easy for me to worry about edge cases because they're already handled in the abstract operations.
yep.
It's helped me actually find flaws in the spec text itself of proposals.
Wow, really.
And it just makes it really easy to understand what it's doing once you have a basic understanding of the JavaScript spec, which normal people won't have, and that's okay. But like, right?
That's
But
true.
now that
That's true.
I've done that, I can take an LLM and say, here is proposed spec text. Here
Mm-hmm,
is some example projects, and here's ES abstract. Make a polyfill for it following all that stuff.
yep.
And it'll probably get 99% of the way there without me having to do any work
Mm-hmm,
because I've already front loaded the
mm-hmm,
manual work to give it exemplars and
yep.
I created the lower
I like
level
that.
thing.
I like
And
that.
so I think there's a lot of ways
Mhm,
too that if you can architect whatever your application is with
mhm,
a lot of small single responsibility pieces, then it
mhm,
becomes and then you maybe build something, I don't know, then, and you give it examples to look at. I think AI is more likely to create something that is well engineered and solves your problem.
yep.
Because we already, as an industry, have a problem, like have a struggle with meeting deadlines and solving our company's problems,
Mhm.
but leaving behind like wads of tech debt
Oh,
that
yeah.
almost never gets cleaned up sufficiently, right? Like this is a long-standing problem we all have, and that's
Yep.
humans creating that problem.
Mhm,
And so if you say humans with an LLM, that's going to worsen the problem unless you
mhm,
work with the LLM to try to account for that. And
mm, mm,
so what my hope is, and I'm sure I'm being a little naively optimistic
mm,
here, is that the more experienced engineers will learn to use LLMs to bypass needing to cut all those corners, to
mm,
avoid creating the tech debt in the first place,
yes.
because it lets them create something faster,
Mhm,
so that the goal isn't just to squish the deadline sooner, but
yep.
it's to squish the deadline sooner and leave the application in a much better engineered
Much
state.
better state. Yep. Yep.
Um,
It's not always
right?
code
I mean,
generation
it'll be up to the individual engineers to like make that happen, but
yeah.
I'm hoping that people will.
Yep, yep. Code generation isn't the issue. It's the, again, going
Correct.
from requirements to, again, understanding and building out more I guess like what was it? I was gonna say the longevity. Look at me. I can't English well. I'm JavaScripting. I can JavaScript better than I can English at times. Yeah. Look at me on a
Sure.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no,
But there's this the sustainability, I
but
guess.
yeah, it's sustainability of
Yeah.
the code that you have, right? When you look at it 6 months
Yeah.
from now, 12 months from now, whatever it is, right? It's always been like, sure, you can write code, you can generate more code now with an LLM, but it's that sustainability that, in my opinion, like that isn't
Well,
the inherent issue, right?
I
That we
agree. And I
we
don't think the code has
have.
ever been the thing that's valuable.
Never,
And
no,
I've said
never
this
has been.
before, and
Mhm.
some people have a really visceral reaction to it, but like,
Yeah.
I don't think code has any value. The
Hmm.
problem it's solving has value.
Yep.
The like the knowledge that the implementation might contain
Mhm.
has value,
Yep.
but like, or like it's the same thing with like people. I used to work at Twitter a decade ago, and
Yeah.
people on Hacker News every week without fail would pop up and be like, "I could build Twitter in a weekend," and it's like maybe you could build
Mhm.
an app that has the same features in a weekend. Sure, that's
Mhm.
not the hard part.
Yeah.
Building an app that can like handle this level of scale, that can handle
Yep.
this level of globalization, that can
Mhm.
like
Yep.
have this much localization and translation and internationalization, right? Like
Yep.
those are not things anyone could do in a weekend. And
That is, it's
and even
hard.
if you could, even
Mhm.
if you could just recreate the entire infrastructure overnight,
Yep.
as we've seen, right? Like it's still users, like you still need enough users to choose your solution.
Mhm.
Like if it's an application, right? For that to matter. Like what, 'cause for a social network, right? Where you have a network effect, it's important,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And so I could get all of the code to GitHub right now,
Yep.
and I could stand it all up and call it, GitHub 2
I was like,
and,
LJ
something
Harband.
that wouldn't get me sued.
LJ
But
Hub.
like, sure.
Yeah, anyway,
And
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
it could work exactly the same, but that does not mean
Mhm.
that it's an equivalent because all those people and the data set and
Yep.
the user list and all their
Yep.
credentials, like
Mhm.
there's tons of value there that's not part of the code. And
Yep.
I think that whenever people get to kind of predicting doom about LLMs for engineers like AI and stuff is I think that they're overly focused on the code as the thing that's valuable.
Mhm.
And I've seen tweets that are like, "Oh, well, open source usage is going to decline because like the LLM will just generate a snippet," and it's like maybe that'll happen, but like,
Let's
so
have a
there's a
look.
new show I've been watching on Apple TV
Mhm.
called Pluribus,
Okay.
and without dropping any spoilers, the basic premise is um, something happens and most of the humans become part of one hive mind. And
Mhm.
there's only a handful of people that aren't part of it, that are individuals.
Yeah.
And then later in the show, the hive mind gets really excited because the main character is an author and the main character is an individual and she's trying to write a new book. And the
Mhm.
reason they're excited is because they aren't in a position to create new ideas.
Mm.
Right? Like they have all human knowledge available to them and
Mhm.
they're just sitting there bored and they can't make anything new for themselves. And
Oh,
so
nice.
I feel like that's an interesting parallel to this sort of AI world where we may get to a point where AI is capable of
Mhm.
generating from scratch sufficient code that you don't need any open source at all.
Mhm.
But for many reasons, that won't be a better world, including that
Mm.
if we run out of people who have the mindset to come up with new ideas
Yep.
or to implement them in new ways,
Mhm.
then at some point we're going to stagnate. Like,
Mhm.
in the world of Pluribus, there's no new art. There's no new music or movies or
Yep.
books. It's right. Like
Mhm.
are limited to the resources they have in front of them large by and large. And so, and I think a world where people are only depending on an I think that's
Mhm.
going to be the same thing. So there's
Mhm.
like, I'm also not saying like we should get rid of AI, right? Like
Yeah,
even
yeah,
if
yeah.
that genie could be put back in the bottle, which it
Yep.
can't, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't think that would be a good solution either. But
Yep. Mhm.
um, there's a lot of value and this aligns with the single responsibility principle stuff. There's a lot of value in um, being able to share compartmentalized knowledge like bags,
Mhm.
right? Of like this open source project isn't just its code, it's also somebody or many people have put a lot of thought, have gone real deep into this
Mhm.
problem area, and they have found edge cases. They have thought about how the API design, they have
Yep.
opinions.
Mhm.
Um, that knowledge is valuable. And we need to make sure as a species that we still create new pockets of knowledge, right?
Mhm.
And that we
Right.
don't just regurgitate all the existing ones.
Yep.
Although there's tons of,
Yeah.
tons of profit to be extracted
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
from consuming all from regurgitating the existing things. Like we haven't exhausted that yet,
Yeah.
but at some point we will.
Mhm.
And I hope there's still people who are interested in open source so that open
Mhm.
source can be something that continues to innovate and provide
Mhm.
value.
Yeah, it's one thing I will say inherently as a sort of shifting a bit, like even when it comes to like when it comes to LLMs, it's like, oh wow, like hey, I can see this is a means of expediting like my day-to-day workflow and the
Yeah.
things that I produce. But I'm like, but on the off chance, like my free time, sure, I can, spending it with family and whatnot, but also like within that, dedicating and actually taking the time to dive even deeper into things such as like our
Yeah.
frameworks, diving into the specification, diving into better understanding even the tools and the, or even like trying to come up with something even just fun, something interesting, right?
Yeah.
I think, sort of offsetting that, like, hey, this is providing me this. Well, why don't I take that
Hmm.
extra time or whatever I have to dive deeper? Like right now, this year, like I want to dive into building databases from scratch, right?
Yeah.
Next up, building a front end framework from scratch. Like these are things that I inherently want to do, and LLMs have sort of, again, like as you said, like keeping that, hopefully someone, again, being creative, but also just having that inherent interest, because I think that
Yeah.
some people may take just anything AI, just AI itself, it's a tool, right? And some people
Yeah.
may take that tool and use it for everything. And, for them, sure. For me, it's like, hey, use it for this. This is where it's
Yeah.
highly beneficial, right? As you said, I'm a domain expert here. I feel comfortable reviewing things. You feel comfortable doing it like this way.
Hmm.
It's expedited and, save me a lot of time. But on the off chance of to save time, I can now, repurpose my time elsewhere
Right.
and do other things. I can be
Yeah.
creative. I can, dive deeper into the things that I've always wanted to dive deeper in, whatever it is. So,
Right.
that's a really interesting and really wise take that you have there, Jordan. And I like that. But
Thank
yeah.
you.
So, I mean, man, oh, weird. Look, I'm just having fun talking to you, but, but I know I can't hold you forever. But, I guess the last question, wanting to ask, yeah. So I guess going back to it, I said 2026. So
Yeah.
like anything we can be expecting out of the LJ Harb,
I mean,
I mean,
Socket certified patch product is going to be, fully released and by the end of the year, like fully released and working
oh,
great.
good. Okay.
Um, so anyone who's in a company that can't upgrade things, they should look into that.
Okay.
Um, CLE stuff, there's going to be tools out there. We're going to be trying to increase adoption so that
Mhm.
projects can surface that information and then SCA tools and compliance organizations and so on can consume that information
Mhm.
programmatically.
Yep.
Um, so that hopefully that'll have some adoption. We'll be talking to all the various registries as well too to try and surface that information.
Mhm.
Um, I'm going to continue maintaining the stuff I've got, and I'm going to be trying to keep trying to work through the backlog of stuff that because the small projects I can jump in and out of quickly, but the
Mhm.
bigger ones
More
take
time.
time, and some things
Yeah.
still fall through the cracks. So I have
Hey.
some cracks to fill up, I guess.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping to do that.
Any
Yeah,
advice for open source, for either open source, well, future open source contributors or people who are contributing, but at a very small scale, like any advice for them, when it comes to open
sure.
source?
Something that's not new is be kind. Um, Listen before you talk. So like that could mean going and read documents, read PRs, read issues, but like try and get the lay of the land before you just jump in and inject your opinion. And that
Mhm.
applies to any scenario. Um, and a newer one might be try to avoid using AI as part of your open source contribution.
Mm.
Um, it's totally great if you want to use it as a learning tool, but try and work if you're going to do it, then try to work with the AI to teach you how to do it without the AI and then do it without the AI. And that will be more effective. And not every project wants contributions from AI, and the legal provenance of AI created code is still unclear globally. So, like, you dodge a lot of issues by confining it to helping you learn or solve problems, but actually doing the solutions and the wording of things by yourself. Some nuance there too is it's much better for me to take your language and translate it for myself than for me to try to read your AI translated thing, right? Whether that's a non-English language or whether
Mhm.
that's just you think you're not explaining it well, like just let me improve it with AI for my understanding. Like don't do it in advance. Just give the original thing and people will work with it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is some great insights. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Thanks
And
for having
it
me.
is, dude, absolutely. It's been an absolute joy and
Yeah.
hopefully get to have you on the podcast again.
Anytime.
So, oh yeah, thank you. Hey, you have an amazing day
You
and
too.
happy, what is it? Happy Monday. Happy Monday. All right.
There
So
you go.
have an amazing day, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.